They murdered Big Bertha. That 8-pound bass visited my dock each morning for 3 years. I named her, fed her, watched her grow. Now she's floating belly up with 200 other fish because my HOA president believes she owns my lake. The chemical odor scorched my nostrils at dawn, harsh copper sulfate blended with decay. Vivian Blackwater dumped $3,500 of industrial algicide into my pristine water overnight, transforming it to antifreeze green. I stood clutching Bertha's slick, dead weight, trembling with absolute fury. Then I understood something truly magnificent. Vivian's upscale subdivision draws its drinking water from the identical underground spring supplying my lake. Every drop, all 847 homes. She didn't merely poison my fish. She poisoned her whole community, and she has no idea what's coming. Ever had neighbors who believed they could wreck your property simply because they disliked your actions? Tell me your location. Share your HOA horror story below because this is getting intense. I'm Marcus Reed. At 52, I never expected war with a woman whose manicure budget likely exceeds my weekly earnings. But that's suburban life. I'm a retired electrician now installing solar panels here in Pine Ridge, North Carolina. The sort who repairs things manually and thinks folks should handle their own affairs. My 12-acre property with its spring-fed lake has belonged to my family since 1952, when this was all tobacco fields and sensible thinking. Each morning I tread the gravel path my grandfather built, boots grinding on stones, smoothed by generations of anglers. The dock boards feel warm and aged beneath my palms, still damp with dew. That sweet honeysuckle fragrance blends with the clean mineral aroma of spring water. Blue herons nest in cypress trees. Bass leap at sunrise. For 70 years, this spot meant absolute tranquility. Then the developers appeared. 15 years back, they purchased everything surrounding me and constructed Willow Creek Estates, 847 McMansions, starting at $600,000 each. They offered millions for my land, wanted my lake for their golf club. I told them to take their cash and construct their clubhouse in hell. Most newcomers were decent. Regular folks who waved during jogs, sometimes inquired about fishing. Then Vivian Blackwater arrived. Imagine this. 47 years old, drives a white Lexus washed more frequently than most people bathe, carries a leather portfolio to block parties. She speaks like an attorney ordering coffee, uses terms like property value optimization and aesthetic compliance standards. The type who likely schedules bathroom visits. Vivian crowned herself HOA president within half a year and instantly began enhancement campaigns, meaning tormenting everyone until they surrendered to her suburban reign. Her first strike came 3 months after moving in. Certified letter, official letterhead, the full performance. My unsightly fishing supposedly disrupted her peaceful neighborhood enjoyment. The $800,000 she paid for that waterfront view meant watching me catch dinner ruined her investment. Legal threats intensified rapidly. She alleged my dock breached aesthetic covenants applying to all local properties. She actually demanded I demolish a structure existing before her birth. I phoned my friend Tom Martinez, real estate attorney who saved me repeatedly. He almost choked laughing. Marcus, property predating HOA creation isn't subject to retroactive covenants. She's threatening you with non-existent laws. Key insight. If your land existed before an HOA formed, their rules typically can't apply backward. Your deed date is your legal protection. When intimidation flopped, Vivian filed a false county complaint about my illegal dock. The inspector came out, examined my 1987 permits, and apologized for the wasted trip. You could virtually see his eyes rolling. That's when she revealed her real character. Each morning, I fished at 6 a.m. during base feeding time, and suddenly Vivian required emergency landscaping. Leaf blowers, chainsaws, industrial mowers, all roaring at full volume along her property line. Diesel fumes wafted across my lake, blending with honeysuckle, turning my peaceful dawn into a highway construction zone aroma. Her crew earned more overtime in 2 months than most see annually, all to bother one man fishing in his own yard. But I kept fishing. Some principles merit defense, even against suburban bullies with excessive wealth and minimal wisdom. I didn't realize Vivian was merely warming up. I certainly didn't know she'd commit environmental terrorism for victory. What's worse than a Karen with a law degree? A Karen with a law degree treating property surveys like weapons of mass destruction. 2 weeks after the inspector dismissed her dock complaint, Vivian hired the priciest surveyor in 3 counties to confirm our boundaries. Not from actual doubt. My grandfather marked those lines with concrete posts that'll outlast society. This was pure harassment with a professional bill. The surveyor appeared Tuesday morning with gear worth more than my truck. The lights, GPS units, laser levels costing more hourly than most earn daily. I watched from my kitchen window, drinking coffee, enjoying the spectacle as they spent 6 hours measuring the identical boundary legal since Truman's presidency. The scent of freshly cut grass from their fancy equipment blended with morning lake mist. Even their harassment required perfect grooming. 3 days later, Vivian's lawyer mailed a registered letter claiming my dock encroached exactly 6 inches on community water rights. 6 entire inches on a lake owned by my family before her birth. But here Vivian truly revealed herself. She filed a real county court lawsuit for property encroachment. Professional letterhead, court stamps, filing fees probably exceeding most car payments. All over 6 inches of dock space. When this woman decides to ruin someone, she goes all in. While her legal documents inched through the system, she started a Facebook campaign worthy of a political strategist. Posted in the Willow Creek Estates group about her problematic neighbor rejecting community standards. The comments became a digital mob faster than you could utter property values. But I can research too. I spent my weekend in the county courthouse basement inhaling dust older than Vivian's career, excavating deed records and property transfers. Sometimes the finest revenge is simply knowing more than your foe. And I struck gold. My grandfather didn't just own the land. He possessed exclusive water rights to the entire lake system. Every drop, every fish, every water molecule. The original 1952 deed explicitly included all water rights, surface and subsurface, covering natural springs and tributaries too. But the glorious part that made me laugh until I nearly toppled from my chair. The lake is spring-fed from an underground aquifer stretching directly beneath Vivian's precious subdivision. Legally, each time her neighbors flush toilets, they're using my water. Key insight. Water rights often transfer separately from land ownership and are documented in property deeds. These rights can surpass the land's value. I called Tom Martinez with my discovery. After he finished howling with laughter, he said, "Marcus, you don't just have a defense. You've got a nuclear weapon disguised as a property deed." So we filed a countersuit for harassment, slander, and abusive legal process. But the timing was pure poetry. Vivian was hosting one of her lavish backyard dinner parties. Over 40 HOA residents holding wine glasses, complaining about taxes while eating food, costing more per bite than most spend on lunch. Evening air carried expensive catered salmon and pretentious chatter. Champagne glasses captured golden hour light. Everyone dressed for a real estate commercial. Mid-Vivian's speech about maintaining community standards and property values, our sheriff's deputy strode through her back gate like he owned it. "Ma'am, I need to serve you legal documents." 40 conversations halted mid-sentence, only ice clinking nervously in glasses as Vivian's perfectly manicured hands shook while reading. Her makeup couldn't conceal her pallor as she understood what she held. "This is harassment," she screamed, loud enough to shake windows. "That redneck is trying to intimidate me with frivolous lawsuits." There it was. The mask fell completely. The polished real estate attorney became another suburban bully having a meltdown because someone fought back. Her dinner guests suddenly recalled urgent appointments. Astonishing how swiftly wealthy people flee when someone yells about rednecks at a catered event. But Vivian wasn't finished. Next morning, I discovered an anonymous note beneath my wiper. "Stop fishing or face consequences." Apparently, public humiliation only made her more hazardous. Anonymous threats are amusing, but Vivian's next move was pure government weaponization. Nothing compares to watching a real estate attorney turn federal agencies into personal attack dogs. Within a week of my countersuit, I had more government inspectors swarming my property than a meth lab raid. Fish and Wildlife arrived first. Clipboards ready, alleging they must investigate potential disruption to migratory bird patterns from my fishing. I'm not joking. This woman actually convinced a federal agency that my catching base interfered with duck navigation. The EPA inspector came next, suited for Chernobyl, armed with water test kits and a clipboard thicker than Vivian's legal fees. Supposedly, my private lake use might create environmental risks. The sweet irony of that charge would strike me later. County Health Department Thursday morning, code enforcement arrived Friday afternoon. By the weekend's close, I'd collected more official cards than a DC insider. Every agent discovered precisely what you'd anticipate from the region's purest lake. Not a single violation. Yet bureaucratic bullying travels both directions, and I was preparing to take the wheel. While Vivian manipulated agencies as her puppets, I befriended the strings. It seems courtesy to overwhelmed public servants investigating bogus claims makes an impression. They also recall who squanders their hours. Dolores Martinez emerged as my clandestine asset. A 68-year-old ex-county clerk with razor-sharp recall and a vendetta against crooked developers, all over coffee, tasting like justice and caffeine. She unleashed a revelation that stunned me. Marcus, that entire development sits atop conserved wetlands. The builder secured his permits by vowing to protect all natural water elements permanently. It's federal statute. The mug grew warm in my grip as the meaning settled in. Key insight. Building permits frequently include everlasting conservation terms that legally obligate all subsequent owners. Breaching these ecological mandates can unleash enormous federal fines. I dedicated the following weekend to environmental sleuthing, and my finding topped any lottery win. Vivian's landscaping team, the same exhaust-spewing unit that soundtracked my angling, was treating my lake as their private landfill. Grass cuttings, shrub debris, fertilizer-soaked waste, all channeling right into federally shielded marshes. Each Saturday at daybreak, predictably, I turned eco paparazzo, concealed in the tree line with my lens as honeysuckle sweetness blended with diesel smoke. Coarse oak bark pressed into my spine while I anticipated the ideal frame. The third consecutive Saturday, I captured them tipping organic refuse directly into my water, the plunk resonating in the calm dawn. The images were perfect, time-stamped, geologged, high-def proof of federal offenses in plain sight. But the true prize arrived when I checked their plates in the state registry. Pristine Landscaping LLC was 40% held by Richard Blackwater, Vivian's spouse, property mogul, and seemingly an amateur eco-offender. The EPA doesn't merely appreciate ecological breaches with pictorial proof. They absolutely revere them when linked to harassment operations. I submitted my grievance Monday dawn with a grin that might have electrified the county. By Wednesday, Pristine Landscaping faced federal scrutiny. Richard forfeited 3 municipal agreements by Friday. It appears when you discard organic matter in conserved marshes, cities abruptly reject your park maintenance bids. Who might have predicted that? The noise of Vivian's meticulously ordered universe beginning to fracture was more melodic than Sunday church bells. Yet if I presumed ecological offenses would tame her, I was going to discover how utterly mistaken a man can be. Nothing renders a desperate female more hazardous than seeing her husband's commercial domain collapse from her private feud. And Vivian Blackwater would soon demonstrate she'd sooner ignite the community than concede. The dawn I discovered the algicide firm's card wedged under my wiper, I understood we'd transitioned from legal combat to far grimmer territory. The card carried a faint chlorine odor and despair. Ecological sabotage was clearly Vivian's next scheme. Pity she didn't comprehend she was going to taint her own tap water. That card under my glass wasn't merely a warning. It was an impending admission. But I couldn't guess Vivian would perpetrate an ecological offense to make veteran EPA staff sob. While I was away seeing Sandra's kin in Charlotte, Vivian was investigating algae control methods, as if readying for biological combat. She located Clearwater Solutions, a commercial algicide firm focusing on industrial-grade pond care, the sort of compounds that can purge a lake quicker than you utter property values. Here, Vivian's legal intellect truly glittered. She phoned Clearwater and deceived them with her flawless teeth, alleging my lake was shared land, suffering a hazardous algae surge menacing public safety. $3,500 cash delivered up front for a nighttime chemical strike on what she described as an urgent ecological crisis. The absurdity would have been comical if it weren't going to slaughter all I cherished. I returned Sunday night to the odor assaulting me before I exited my vehicle. That piercing metallic reek of copper sulfate blended with wholesale death. The lake had shifted to a sickly blue-green shade like coolant blended with doom. Big Bertha drifted 20 feet from the pier, her huge form already swollen in the tainted water. 3 years of dawn feedings, witnessing her swell from a respectable base to a watery myth, and now she was just another fatality in Vivian's suburban slaughter. 200 other fish bobbed beside her, bluegill, crappie, catfish. A complete habitat executed overnight because one female couldn't bear someone relishing their own property. My hand trembled as I grabbed for my cell, the sleek plastic slick from perspiration and utter fury. The county ecological crisis line linked me to Officer Jim Patterson, who'd probed illegal dumping for 15 years. When I depicted the marine crime scene, his tone switched from standard official to maximum alert. Don't contact anything, restrain animals, and preserve the proof. I'm mobilizing the hazmat unit. Patterson came with aqueous assessment gear that appeared extraterrestrial. The test strips changed to hues unknown in the wild. Profound azures and violets shrieking severe chemical pollution. The pungent odor of testing agents combined with aquatic death made my vision blur. Industrial-grade copper sulfate toxicity, he stated, his voice strained with expert anger. Whoever did this didn't simply murder your fish. They neutralized the complete habitat for 2 to 3 years minimum. This is felony property damage, potentially federal ecological terrorism. Key insight. Unlawful disposal of industrial compounds on private land represents felony damage in most states and activates federal ecological offense counts bearing 5 to 10-year prison terms. But Patterson continued his detective work. While I stood clutching a trash sack that was once my angling heaven, he was examining security film from Mrs. Henderson's door cam opposite the road. The footage was sharp. Clearwater Solutions truck appearing at 2:17 a.m., two shapes in protective gear pouring demise straight into my lake, disappearing by 2:43 a.m., 26 minutes to obliterate 70 years of family legacy. That dusk, I perched on my dock, cradling a smaller deceased bass, recalling my grandfather instructing me to cast right here. The timber boards felt frigid and splintered under my thighs, and the quiet was utterly crushing. No birds, no bugs, no vitality near liquid that once teemed with motion. Sandra located me there an hour later, both of us weeping as we commenced the horrific cleansing of ecological terrorism. Yet sorrow hones concentration uniquely. While we loaded sack after sack with Vivian's casualties, my electrician's mind began linking points. I'd mounted solar units on numerous homes in that development. I understood their infrastructure thoroughly. Each residence in Willow Creek Estates employs well water drawn from the identical subterranean spring network supplying my lake. The same aquifer, the same source, the same copper sulfate infection now seeping through limestone passages toward 847 oblivious households. I had my liquid examined next dawn by a private lab. The outcome chilled my veins. Copper sulfate concentrations quadruple EPA potable water limits. Vivian hadn't merely infected my lake. She'd polluted her whole community's water reserve. Each sink, each shower, each ice machine in that flawless development was now dispensing industrial poison. The woman who spent months complaining about my unattractive fishing had converted her ideal suburb into a hazardous dump, and she was going to consume her own toxin. Sweet, sweet karma never seemed so sharp. You know that instant when you're studying one topic and unintentionally uncover missile codes concealed in your grandma's cookbook? That's essentially what occurred when I chose to probe deeper into my grandfather's land archives. I believed I was constructing a sturdier legal rebuttal to Vivian's case. What I uncovered instead was like possessing the soul well in a drought-ridden wasteland full of parched souls. Monday morning, I motored again to the county courthouse cellar. That unique bureaucratic limbo scented of antique documents, dust creatures, and shattered hopes. Harsh lights droned above like furious insects while I excavated storage containers untouched since Y2K panic. The initial deed conveyance from 1952 was submerged under ages of pointless files. My digits were stained with archival grime when I ultimately uncovered it, scripted in that official legalese intended to bore ordinary people unconscious. Then I encountered the passage that halted my pulse. Including all water rights, surface and subsurface, to underground spring system and tributaries thereto in perpetuity. In perpetuity, Latin for eternally. Savor that. My grandfather hadn't merely acquired dirt. He'd purchased each molecule of liquid moving through the subterranean spring network, stretching for miles below what would someday become Vivian's prized development. I remained in that grimy cellar, hands shaking, clutching a 70-year-old page that instantly crowned me the dominant force across 3 counties. The sheet seemed delicate, yet its text proved tougher than alloy. This is where the situation turns truly exquisite. I extracted the Willow Creek Estates construction files from 2008. The builder's water utilization permit request stated they'd bore self-sufficient wells drawing from renewable sources. Autonomous wells that connect straight into my grandfather's aquifer 400 feet down current from my pond. Each and every one. The developer never acquired water rights, likely because he never realized they were a distinct property. Most don't. They assume land ownership includes whatever liquid lies below. Incorrect. Costly presumption. Profession-destroying error. Key insight. Water rights exist entirely apart from land possession and require specific conveyance. Neglecting to obtain these rights can reveal builders and residents to enormous legal responsibility and usage costs. For 15 years, 847 households had consumed my water without consent, without payment, and without realizing their most despised neighbor actually possessed each molecule from their spigots. The calculation itself dizzied me. Typical home consumption multiplied by 847 residences, multiplied by 15 years, multiplied by standard water rights value. We're discussing dozens of millions in overdue fees I could lawfully claim. Yet the pollution aspect, that was the jewel crowning this judicial bonanza. Each house in that community was now consuming liquid tainted by Vivian's nighttime chemical attack. Copper sulfate effects incorporate abdominal cramps, sickness, hepatic harm, and in youths, growth issues. The EPA considers this a civic health crisis deserving federal action. Vivian's case against me for 6 inches of pier suddenly seemed infantile. I phoned Tom Martinez from the lot, sunlight heating the cab while my reality reoriented. Tom, I don't merely possess the pond. I control their whole water source. Each unit they've consumed for 15 years is rightfully mine. The quiet persisted so extensively I verified my connection. Marcus, he eventually murmured, you're not countering a land disagreement anymore. You're harboring the most significant water rights litigation this province has witnessed. And if that pollution permeates the aquifer, he stopped. We both understood Vivian had infected 847 homes employing liquid that was mine. The balance of power altered so violently I could sense the ground quake under Vivian's custom heels. When you find you possess a judicial atom bomb, you don't wildly brandish it like an intoxicated brawler. You gather a squad of expert killers who understand precise targeting. Initial contact reached Rebecca Torres, ecological attorney from Raleigh who forged her practice annihilating companies that considered community poisoning sound commerce. Her workspace carried aromas of premium coffee and retribution when I entered Tuesday daybreak. Water rights infringement, ecological pollution, civic health crisis, she stated, gaze shining while examining my paperwork. Marcus, this isn't litigation. This is an advanced seminar in legal combat that'll instruct law pupils for generations. Rebecca's approach was brilliant. Strike them from all sides concurrently before they detect the assault. Federal case for water rights larceny. EPA crisis involvement for pollution. Provincial criminal counts for unlawful disposal. Civil actions for property harm. Mental suffering and exemplary penalties that would thrill a jackpot recipient. Legal method. Submerging adversaries with concurrent judicial proceedings from various authorities compels instant reactive stances. They'll be sufficiently occupied dousing flames to organize any unified response. Next enlistment was Dr. James Mitchell, water scientist from NC State, who reduces opposing attorneys to tears during interrogations. We convened at my contaminated pond Wednesday dawn, where he dedicated 4 hours collecting specimens and charting the subterranean spring network with apparatus possibly exceeding my vehicle's worth. Captivating aquifer formation, he remarked, thigh-deep in polluted liquid that still stank of compounds. His motions flowed exactly through assessment steps, while dragonflies formerly abundant here were conspicuously missing. Solitary origin springs supplying straight into domestic wells. Pollution will access all residences within 6 to 8 weeks. We're observing 800 to 1,000 impacted properties. The technical sledgehammer that would demolish any skepticism of Vivian's culpability. Third associate was Sarah Morgan, investigative reporter who'd devoted 3 years dismantling dishonest HOAs like gathering trophies. Her revelations had ruined 2 HOA leaders for theft and 1 operating an actual extortion scheme. When she examined my proof, she appeared like a youth on December 25th. "This is prize-grade content," she announced, arranging papers over my kitchen surface with devout enthusiasm. Authority-intoxicated HOA despot infects whole community while persecuting the man who lawfully controls their water provision. Networks will compete for exclusive discussion privileges. Sarah's vetting of Vivian resembled a violent offender's history. 3 prior communities, 4 persecution suits, 2 protective orders for pursuit conduct. The female demonstrated a recorded 2-decade habit of crushing whoever contested her control. Dolores Martinez supplied the chronological firepower. Over mealtime, coffee flavored like fairness and endless cups. She revealed permit submissions demonstrating the initial builder had performed clear deception, asserting water rights he never bought, never held, never even confirmed were real. Each resident acquired land under fraudulent terms, Dolores clarified, her aged digits wrapping faded pages. They believe they possess water entry. Lawfully, they've been pilfering from you for 15 years. Rebecca computed figures with arithmetic exactness. Standard water rights value here, $50 per home monthly, multiplied by 847 houses, multiplied by 180 months. $30.6 million in overdue payments I could rightfully request. That's preceding compensatory sums for the pollution. Monetary tactic. In water rights disputes, compute both direct utilization charges and resultant losses from ecological contamination. Merged accountability frequently compels agreements before rivals can prepare defenses. But here's where I chose the path dividing fairness from vengeance. I wouldn't economically ruin 800 blameless households merely to penalize one insane female. We propose agreement, Rebecca suggested. Relinquish all overdue fees for 3 conditions. Total pond rehabilitation, Vivian's abdication, plus criminal proceedings and lasting supervision blocking later misuse. Dr. Mitchell formulated the recovery scheme immediately. 18 months applying organic biorestoration, local fish reintroduction, water plant recovery. Expense $250,000 split between HOA reserves and Vivian individually. Sarah synchronized press scheduling, concurrent article publication with legal submission for peak communal impact. She'd already proposed stories to NPR, Washington Post Ecology section, and 3 major channels craving the HOA menace toxins community water story. The blueprint was refined. Strike Vivian with federal counts, state allegations, civil responsibility, and countrywide press attention concurrently. Provide the harmless residents an exit that didn't impoverish them. Demand answerability without group penalty. We held proof that would convince. We held specialist statements that were unassailable. We held media eager to convert Vivian into a nationwide icon of HOA oppression. And we held ethical superiority that would resonate perfectly in tribunal and popular sentiment. Now, we simply required the ideal platform for Vivian's spectacular disgrace. You know what's satisfying about observing someone's existence collapse? The instant they comprehend their concealment is genuinely aggravating their situation, yet they're too committed to cease excavating. Vivian identified the water pollution exactly as fate planned. Through her residents' grievances about metal flavors in their dawn brew. Within 7 days of poisoning my pond, the Willow Creek Estates online forum surged with entries about odd-tasting liquid and peculiar odors from faucets. Mothers reported their children developing abdominal issues. One member wrote about her canine rejecting its water dish. The replies area became a virtual crisis center. Vivian, being Vivian, instantly activated containment protocols worthy of a statesperson. She published a formal HOA announcement attributing the flavor to natural mineral content and cyclical shifts in subsurface water makeup. Interpretation: no concern present. Cease inquiries. Have faith in your generous ruler. Yet frantic individuals take frantic measures. And Vivian would soon demonstrate the extremes she'd attempt to conceal her ecological sabotage. She reached the algicide firm, Clearwater Solutions, and endeavored to pay the proprietor to eliminate their service archives. Proposed $10,000 currency to misplace any proof of their nighttime pond service. The odor of her despair could empty a space. What Vivian ignored was that ecological firms maintain detailed files particularly for legal accountability, and the proprietor, a man called Derek Thompson, taped their complete discussion because a panicked female proposing monetary inducements near midnight triggered his legal instincts. Legal caution, endeavoring to eliminate proof or corrupt witnesses, converts minor charges into felony evidence tampering. The concealment frequently surpasses the violation. While Vivian was occupied deleting trails, she also employed a private detective to collect compromising information on me. Some fellow named Rick Patterson, who focused on personal histories and seemed to have studied his craft from inferior television. Rick began shadowing me through the town, snapping pictures of my vehicle, conversing with my customers, seeking any detail to undermine me legally. He even alerted the authorities and had him detained for attempted auto theft. It appears Rick had a record of exceeding legal limits for patrons. His investigator credential was already suspended. But Vivian here is the fourth part of the script, rewritten in the same tone and style, and matched for word count. Wasn't finished. She submitted nameless grievances to the state contractor board alleging my solar enterprise functioned without correct authorization. Total invention. Yet it prompted a probe that consumed a fortnight and $3,000 in attorney costs to settle. The administrative persecution returned with renewed force. Only now I was logging each detail, each discussion, each grievance, each occasion of her launching government bodies at me as arms. Monitoring advice. In persecution situations, consistently verify your province's audio laws. North Carolina permits single-party consent, allowing me to lawfully capture each discussion without alerting the counterpart. Simultaneously, the communal health disaster was intensifying. A child doctor locally observed a surge in juvenile stomach issues among youngsters from Willow Creek. Caregivers brought children displaying signs matching toxic metal poisoning, queasiness, abdominal distress, migraines. The HOA directors began obtaining countless grievances about water purity. Individuals purchased bottled water in quantity. Certain households installed costly purification units. The online forum transformed into a mutual aid network for individuals certain something was gravely incorrect with their water source. Vivian's reaction, fault aging systems, and declare a unique levy of $500 per residence for urgent water network improvements. She was genuinely billing individuals to repair the issue she engineered. The board assembly where she declared this was remarkable. 80 irate residents crammed the communal hall, the atmosphere dense with strain and the scent of scorched coffee from the antiquated communal brewer. Caregivers rose requesting explanations, displaying clinic invoices, menacing legal action. Vivian stood at the lectern in her tailored outfit, cosmetics impeccable, tone calm, while she deceived regarding mineral accumulation and system breakdowns. The female could have instructed advanced courses in psychological manipulation. 3 directors faced her post-assembly, insisting on details about the enigmatic $3,500 gardening cost from the HOA treasury previous month. Vivian declined to show invoices, stated it was standard upkeep, and threatened to prosecute any director challenging her fiscal choices. That's when Director Patricia Morgan, unrelated to Sarah, commenced her own examination into HOA accounts. It appears applying communal money to poison a neighbor's land qualifies as misappropriation under Carolina statute. The barriers were enclosing Vivian from all fronts. Her concealment was generating fresh offenses quicker than she could conceal the prior ones. And she still remained unaware that I controlled the water source she recently polluted. I obtained one ultimate menacing call that week. Abandon the case or you'll lament it. The tone was masked, but the despair beneath was obvious. My reply was brief. I'll encounter you in tribunal. When a trapped beast understands the snare is shutting, it either yields or turns utterly savage. Vivian Blackwater selected savage. Her ultimate scheme commenced with a community-wide character assassination effort that would envy a misinformation official. She fabricated 3 counterfeit online profiles complete with generic images and fabricated backgrounds and inundated the Willow Creek forum with entries regarding my unlawful deeds. According to Vivian's digital marionettes, I was an ecological radical who intentionally infected my own pond to implicate the HOA and blackmail blameless households. The entries alleged I operated some insurance deception plot, that my solar venture was a cover for unlawful activities, that I possessed a criminal record. Complete fantasy, yet published with sufficient assurance that individuals began accepting it. Slander statute. Fabricating false profiles to disseminate untrue claims creating reputational or monetary injury represents severe defamation and can initiate distinct civil and criminal counts. The character assassination succeeded with certain individuals. I began receiving aggressive looks at the supermarket. 2 solar clients terminated agreements referencing worries about our commercial methods. Someone aerosol-painted deceiver on my vehicle in the superstore lot. The inferior paint odor remained for days, even after removal. Yet Vivian's despair would guide her into genuinely foolish domain. She appeared at my dwelling on a Thursday dusk, attired in informal wear rather than her standard executive outfit, bearing a leather document case that likely exceeded most individuals' house payments. The sundown threw extended shades across my entry as she approached, her footwear tapping the pavement. "Marcus, I believe we can settle this as logical, mature people," she stated, placing the case on my veranda rail. The hide groaned as she unclasped it, exposing orderly piles of $100 notes. 100,000 currency to abandon all judicial proceedings and endorse a shared confidentiality pact. The night air carried aromas of honeysuckle and corruption. What Vivian didn't realize was that I carried a recorder. Tom Martinez had recommended it post her investigator's arrest, and I'd grown quite accustomed to the compact recording gadget secured to my torso. Carolina's single-party consent statute is a marvelous thing. "You're proposing me currency to conceal that you poisoned my pond and infected your community's water source?" I inquired, ensuring the device captured each syllable distinctly. "I'm proposing a logical agreement to settle a land conflict," she stated, legal terminology seeping like toxin. "This is a sincere motion to prevent extended judicial processes." "Sincere motion?" I reiterated. "Is that the current term for attempted graft?" Her expression shifted from artificial warmth to glacial in roughly 2 seconds. She slammed the case closed, the noise crisp as firearm discharge in the tranquil dusk. "You'll lament this, Marcus. I hold contacts here that will ruin you." "I'll accept the odds," I stated. "Now vacate my land before I include unlawful entry to the charge list." She departed, leaving wheel imprints in my stone entry, her luxury vehicle hurling pebbles as she accelerated. Meanwhile, the ecological health crisis was nearing critical mass. The district health office had obtained beyond 50 grievances about development water purity. Caregivers were chronicling their children's signs: nausea, abdominal distress, continuous migraines, even certain instances of skin irritations from washing in polluted water. The EPA chose to examine after a district health official submitted a formal concern document. When national ecological bodies engage, situations accelerate rapidly. They dislike infected potable water impacting hundreds of households. EPA agents reached Willow Creek on a Tuesday morning with water analysis apparatus that rendered Dr. Mitchell's arrangement resembling adolescent science exhibition. They examined wells across the development, mapped the aquifer network, and tracked pollution origins with the systematic accuracy of forensic teams. Their initial conclusions verified what Dr. Mitchell had forecast. Copper sulfate pollution was permeating the complete subterranean spring network. Present concentrations in development wells were nearing EPA crisis limits. Within an additional month, the water would be formally unfit for human use. The EPA released a communal health notice proposing Willow Creek inhabitants avoid consuming faucet water pending further notice. Land values began plunging instantly. Nothing terminates property worth quicker than national alerts regarding toxic water sources. Vivian's mental collapse was becoming apparent to all. She was seen at the supermarket shouting personally in the lot. Her spouse Richard departed, taking their 2 children and submitting for separation, citing unresolvable disputes and possible legal responsibility vulnerability. The HOA directors ultimately voted to dismiss her as leader after learning she'd applied communal money to cover the algicide, the investigator, and numerous other personal feud costs. Misappropriation counts were submitted to the district attorney. Her attorney quit, referencing moral issues about defending someone persistently performing crimes during judicial examination. Everything Vivian had constructed, her communal status, her union, her authority role, was disintegrating like cardboard construction in a cyclone. And she still ignored the most terrible aspect. She'd poisoned a water source that lawfully belonged to the man she'd attempted to ruin. The ultimate clash was unavoidable, and it would be extremely, extremely visible. The Pine Ridge Community Center hadn't hosted a gathering this size since the district attempted increasing land taxes. Occupancy maximum, 300 individuals squeezed into area for 200. The atmosphere was dense with physical warmth, anxious vitality, and charred organizational coffee. Television news teams positioned cameras in rear. County sheriffs stationed officers near doors. EPA delegates occupied front row with official identification and stern expressions. Vivian sat on platform with residual HOA directors, custom outfit ideal, cosmetics perfect, yet her gaze carried that trapped beast appearance. She repeatedly inspected her cellular, likely hoping for divine intervention. I sat third row with my team: Rebecca Torres, Dr. Mitchell, Tom Martinez, Sarah Morgan. We held documents that would alter everything, but initially we'd permit Vivian to excavate further. Patricia Morgan, the fresh board leader.